Welcome to the Self-Love Model. On this podcast, we have open-hearted and honest conversations about all things self-love and the journey of self-discovery. This podcast is for those on an everlasting journey of their own evolution, and most importantly, a safe space for us to heal together. I'm your host, Sid, and welcome to your self-love session. Barry, can you be nice to her? Barry, you guys can't see, but my cats are full on. Well, Barry, it's being a little asshole. Barry, and now he just kicked Mango out of her seat. I don't know if you guys heard that, but she just hissed at him, and as she should. All right, guys, welcome back to... Oh, wait, hold on. Let me get my mic situated. Okay, let me just let you guys in on a secret. The secret is that I actually don't use these pink mics anymore, and they're purely for a decoration / prop. But I like to have them, and Amanda was actually who gave me the idea to just keep them because I originally thought about just getting rid of them. But she had a good point because I feel like these mics really adds to the whole podcast aesthetic, which we're all here for. And I love that they're pink. So you know what? We're just going to keep them in. But your girl's just using like a clip-on mic now because this is just way more of a seamless process for me. But welcome back to the Self-Love Model. We're back at it again with our weekly episodes. Are you guys so proud of me? Because I am very proud of me that I've been consistent and showing up for you guys every week. I will say, because the podcast has now officially taken over my entire life, I feel like when it comes to like the other aspects of my life, like my photography business, Cindy A Creative Co., like I've definitely put that on the back burner a little bit, but I am okay with that because I've learned that I'm only one person, and instead of trying to do all these things and like spreading myself thin, this is a much better way of doing things. And I've just learned that in each season, my focus is going to be different, and that is okay. And ever since starting the podcast again, like I am just reminded by how much I freaking love doing this. Like it truly feels like my purpose and my calling, and it just feels good to be doing it again. And I don't know if you guys are able to like relate to what I'm saying or if you've ever experienced that feeling, but truly like I feel like when you've like stepped into your purpose, because like things just feel a little more extra shimmery when you step into your purpose and your calling. That's the best way I can describe it. But last episode, we were joined by my dear friend Amanda, who is also a licensed therapist and social worker. And on the last episode, if you guys haven't listened to it, please go give it a listen because we dive into all the topics I've been talking about. And I love how Amanda was able to bring her perspective into these big topics that I talk about in all my episodes. And something that Amanda said, which really actually helped me reframe something that I've been going through in my head. And she didn't even realize it. It's like a fear that comes up for me again and again with the podcast is that I have this fear that I'm going to be sharing misinformation and I'm going to steer you guys wrong, and that something I say is going to be so like just out of pocket. I don't know if that's like how to say it, but I mentioned this to Amanda in the last episode because she would send me her notes and her feedback after all my episodes in the past, and I will always get a little bit nervous before reading them because I'm always afraid that what if she like has something negative to say about it. And that is also something that I've had to like work on, is receiving criticism and how to handle criticism. I don't know if handle is the right word, but yeah, criticism is not like the easiest thing for me, but I've had to learn that. So if I'm ever asking for criticism, I have to first like put myself in the right headspace. Like, okay, like I have to be mentally prepared for criticism. So if they come my way and I'm not prepared for it, then I feel like it does kind of like, I don't know, like rock my world a little bit. That sounds so dramatic, but I just that's the first sentence that came up to my head, okay? In the last episode, she was able to help me reframe it in a way that I was like, wait a second, yeah, like she's right. I'm putting all this unnecessary pressure on myself, because she was like, yeah, I love like listening to you talk about these big topics, because I can tell that you're really sharing these topics as someone who is actively doing the work and actively on a healing journey. And that's the whole purpose of this podcast. And I do like preface that every time, is that, guys, I am not perfect and I am not a licensed therapist. These are purely things I've learned from my own journey that has helped me. And I truly believe that I've been able to completely transform my life and myself as a person because of all this inner work and this healing journey that I've been on. So yeah, she was able to like help me reframe that just by saying something that she didn't even realize. And, you know, having her on, I feel like it's just such a perfect collaboration, because then it's like she can help me break down these big topics that I talk about in the podcast and really help you guys understand it even better and really take something away from it. Not that you guys don't take anything away from my podcast, and I hope that you guys do take stuff away from it, but I just love the way that she breaks everything down. And even during that last conversation with her, I found myself learning along with you guys. Like I was learning a lot. Bless you, Kiwi. But I was learning a lot like as she was talking and sharing these topics. So thank you, Amanda, for being a part of the self-love model and being so willing to come onto the podcast and having so much fun with me. As you guys can tell with the reel we made, we just really had fun, and I just enjoyed talking to Amanda. Obviously, she's one of my really good friends, so it just makes my job really easy when she knows exactly what she's talking about and we can have really good banter. So yeah, if you guys haven't checked out that episode, make sure you guys go check it out. We are talking about self-trust, which is going to be model number 3 of the self-love model. We've talked about self-awareness, and then we've talked about practicing self-compassion, and now we are going to talk about self-trust. And originally, I was going to talk about self-acceptance next, like after self-compassion. But for some reason, when I started prepping for this episode, self-trust was just immediately top of mind. Like, I was like, let's fucking go. Like, self-trust, I was so excited and pumped to talk about this topic. I just completely forgot about self-acceptance. And I feel like maybe that's just the way it's supposed to be. Like, you know, maybe it's self-trust is what I'm supposed to talk about next. I like to just like trust little moments like that. Like, yes, we can have plans, but I love to just go with the flow of whatever pops up and feels right and natural. And for me, self-trust feels like the natural next model to talk about. And I feel like self-trust is something that I am actually actively working on right now in my own life. So it feels perfect to talk about it because it's very relevant to my personal life as of now. I want to take you guys back down memory lane and back down my journey of when I first began this journey. Self-trust was something that I really knew I needed to work on, because I knew that my self-esteem and self-worth was like my biggest downfall. When I first started my journey, I knew that I really needed to work on both my self-esteem and self-worth, because I knew that both of those things were non-existent in my life. Because growing up, I really felt, one of my core beliefs was that I really felt that I was not enough. I remember writing down in my journal like the feeling of not feeling enough and just crying about how I was feeling. And I remember Googling, like on my phone as I was laying in bed in the dark, like, why do I not feel enough? Like, why am I not enough? I just remember doing that in like my middle and high school years and really just feeling that way. Obviously, there's so many reasons to why we can feel that way. And I've found that the more that I talk about this feeling that I've had, that I've experienced with others, the more I realize how common this core belief is and how deeply rooted it is in all of us. And that can stem from our childhood, how we were raised, to our societal conditionings, and to the constant programming through every commercial, through everything. They're always trying to tell us that we're not enough. So it only makes sense that a lot of us feel this way. And I just really had no confidence growing up. And I feel like people who know me now, they see me as this confident girl who's maybe got her shit together, who, you know, works on her fitness. Like, she's confident in any room that she walks in. Like, I feel like that's how I carry myself. And that is who I am. Like, I definitely see myself as a very confident person. And that doesn't mean that I don't have my days where I don't feel confident in myself. But naturally, how I carry myself and show up in the world now is that I am confident in myself. And that is due to all the inner work that I've done. That was not something that I was born with. I was not born with confidence. Confidence was something that I felt like I really, really had to work for and really had to build. And it was through building my self-trust that I was able to build my confidence. And I remember when I first started this healing journey and knowing what I needed to work on. So that took having self-awareness and knowing, okay, I am not very confident right now. And I don't want to be like this anymore. I want to be this version of myself that I know I can be. It was having that self-awareness, right? Of knowing what I lacked and where I wanted to get to and seeing that gap, but also taking the accountability and taking the action to making those changes and becoming the person that I knew I wanted to become. And that is everything that we've been talking about in these past couple episodes, right? So yeah, I realized that I needed to work on my self-worth and my self-esteem. So I went to Google, shout out Google. And you know, this is back in the day when ChatGPT wasn't a thing. So I was out here doing my own research, and I remember just Googling like, okay, so I know that I'm lacking in these areas. Now, what do I do to like build it? And I remember seeing that like to build your self-worth and self-esteem, you have to learn to trust yourself. And in order to do that, I remember it said to like start by keeping little promises to yourself. So that was what I did. And I honestly meant to dig up my like old journal pages, because I had one exact page that was all about the stuff that we're talking about. But as you guys can see, well, if you're watching, I've got a blanket over my lap and Mango is all nice and cuddle up on me. So we're nice and cozy right now. And I just don't want to move because we've got the setup right now, okay? So I'm just gonna like go off of what I can remember from my head. But I remember seeing that, okay, so I need to make a small promise and keep that to myself. That's how I can begin to build my self-trust and then slowly start to build my self-worth, self-esteem, right? And at the time when I was first starting my healing journey, I also was starting my entrepreneur journey as well. And this is when I was like, okay, I was at the time a server in a restaurant, and that was like my full-time job, but I hated it. Okay, I hated it. I was at that job for 7 years, and I served for like the first 5 years, and I made great money, guys. Don't get me wrong. Like, I will always recommend the service industry to anyone who is trying to figure out their path, because it is like the most flexible job and schedule, and like such a quick way to make money. So I'm like so incredibly grateful for that job and the experiences that it gave me. But I hated it. Towards the end of it, I was crying once a week. I just like was not happy. I felt like I was just on autopilot mode. So, you know, and it really took like when COVID finally hit, we were in lockdown, and then that's like when I was finally taken out of that autopilot mode, right? Because every day I was going to work, you know, making my money, coming back, doing the same, going to the gym, doing the same thing, like over and over. And it took finally like being forced out of my job to like take a break for like 3 months with my own thoughts and doing nothing else, like no going out with the outside world. You know what I'm saying? Like, it really took that for me to like break myself out of that autopilot. And I feel like that period did the same thing for a lot of people. And I'm personally forever grateful for it as well. But anyway, not to get off topic, but during this time, you know, was not happy with my current situation at all. I was not happy with who I was as a person, how I was showing up in the world. I was not happy with my job situation. So I decided I wanted to make a change. So I started by building my self-trust, and I wanted to really make photography like more of a thing. I was like, you know what? Like, I don't know what else I want to do. Like, obviously I don't want to be a server for the rest of my life, but I hate school and nothing else. Like, I just did not know what else I wanted to do. And photography was the only other thing that I enjoyed and loved to do. It was like a hobby that I had. And I was like, you know what? Let me really just tap into photography and really like try and make this a thing. So oh my gosh, okay. I actually have to get up now because my phone, sorry Mango. Okay, the first little promise that I decided to make for myself was that I wanted to do something that was photography related every single day for 30 days. And I only had to do it for 5 minutes. I think that's what I started with, because when I was looking into it, it was like, okay, start with like making a small promise to yourself and follow it for 30 days, right? But make the small promise so easy that it's like almost ridiculous if you miss it. Because especially as you're starting like from like ground zero, from like nothing, you gotta make it as easy as possible. You cannot go and be like, okay, I'm gonna do something photography related for 30 minutes, because that can feel really big for someone who's never been consistent in doing something for 30 days and who like it just was not in my routine or my habit to do. So I had to make it really easy. So I started with 5 minutes a day, and that could be anything, either editing photos, doing some research about photography, you know, like anything that had to do with photography. That was my little promise that I was keeping to myself. And I can't remember, I want to say off the top of my head, I did it for like 27 days. It was really close, but I think after that, I like kept going, even after I like missed a day after 27 days. And I remember it was through that that's like how my photography business kicked off. It was because I simply made this one small promise, and because I was consistent showing up and doing that every single day, that slowly it started to become my identity, and it was something that I enjoyed doing. And I liked that making it like just 5 minutes was really helpful, because obviously it's like, I feel like the hardest part about building new habits and doing stuff like that is like getting yourself to do it. The first step of getting past that resistance and just doing it is the hardest. But once you start doing it, most of the time I went past 5 minutes, because, I already started it. I was starting to like, it was something I loved doing, so it's like, I just had to get myself to do it. I just had to get past that resistance. So if you also feel like self-trust is something that you want to build, I will recommend starting with just making a small promise to yourself for 30 days. Okay, before I really get carried away, let's really first talk about like what self-trust is, because that's how I like to start all my episodes about these models of self-love. Is really, let's just like first understand what the concept of self-trust is. So self-trust, if you guys are watching, I am looking at my whiteboard, but self-trust is having faith in your own abilities and judgment, having the confidence to make decisions alone, and stating my choices despite criticism. So that is what self-trust is. And as I was doing my research on self-trust, so today I did something a little different. I feel like with self-trust, I already like had a lot of stuff I wanted to say. So I didn't do as much of a deep dive when it comes to like researching what I should be talking about, because I just felt like it was something that I had to really work on. So naturally, I know what to say about it. But I found an article on Psychology Today on self-trust and how to build it. And that was really the only thing I looked at. I didn't like listen to any other videos or podcasts, because I'm also kind of trying to get away from doing that, because I really want things to feel like they're in my own voice and not like a copy of someone else's, So I'm really trying to not do that if I feel like I don't need to. I do want to share some stuff from Psychology Today, because I felt like it was really good. The definition of self-trust is the firm reliance on the integrity of yourself. And something that they said in this article that I really liked was that when we look at examples of people who are self-trusting, we find that they have clarity and confidence in their choices. They are interdependent, which includes healthy dependency, not overly dependent or hyper-independent. They speak with authority that comes from a deep place within, but it's not arrogant. They are good observers and have cultivated the ability to learn from their experiences, both the successes and failures. And because they can trust themselves to not be punitive when they make mistakes, they can look openly at their experiences without fear or self-punishment. If my agenda is to protect myself from external or internal recrimination, I am not going to be able to examine my experience, because my primary intention is not to learn but to protect myself. I loved that, because when we're not healed and when we are not like self-aware to our traumas and conditionings, that not being aware of that, it gives it more power. It gives our trauma, it gives our coping mechanisms more power, because that is going to be how we show up in the world, because we have this trauma inside of us that we have not looked at or faced. So because we haven't faced it, it is controlling us, and we're giving it more power. And instead of showing up in the world fully present and open to all the possibilities, instead of seeing it that way, we are seeing it through the eyes of someone with trauma, and we are letting it like dictate our actions, because instead of like, so we're constantly in the state of trying to protect ourselves because we are still showing up in the world and moving through life as this hurt inner child. But once we heal it, then we can actually show up as the person that we are now and take back the control in our life. I hope that makes sense. But I thought that part was really good and profound. And I felt like I needed to share that. So now that we know what self-trust is, here's what some signs that you could be lacking self-trust. If you're still at this point of the podcast, like I'm kind of unsure about it, here are some signs that you could be lacking self-trust. 1, anxiety and stress, which makes sense, and difficulty in making decisions because you don't have that self-trust within yourself. And that's something like I feel like I used to be really, really bad at, especially when I was like very codependent on other people. Like I was not able to make any decisions. Okay. Oh, sorry. Ooh, I just stepped on Mango's tail. But at least she didn't make one of those like noises when you accidentally hurt them, because that always freaks me out. Okay, back at it again. But yeah, so okay, when you lack self-trust, it will increase anxiety and stress in your life. You will experience difficulty making decisions, and you'll have low self-esteem. You'll experience procrastination, negative thinking, and missed opportunity because you don't trust yourself to go after the things that you really want. So if you have said yes and yes and yes to any of those, that means you, honey, are lacking self-trust and it's time to do the work. So now, how can we begin to build that self-trust? And I've already given you guys one example, and that was keeping small promises to yourself. So maybe you guys can find something, like for me, it was photography. Like find something that you always wanted to try or work on, get better at. Find whatever that thing is, or maybe like live a healthier lifestyle. Maybe just find one little habit that you can start implementing in your life and build from there. So that's one way. And the second way is to stop asking opinions on decisions only you can make. And that's when it comes to really big decisions, and I feel like this is something that I'm also working on. I feel like I'm good about it though when it comes to like really big decisions, because a lot of times I know that like if it's a decision I need to make, I need to just like sit with it, meditate, and like I've learned to trust my inner knowing and my intuition on what to make. And I've also, because indecision is just something that I've struggled with my entire life. And listen, guys, I'm a Libra, okay? It's in my nature to be indecisive. But I feel like I've definitely gotten better about it, but it's definitely a work in progress. I've learned that when I am not as grounded, when I am more tired, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, decision making can feel impossible. So I like to make sure that, so usually if I'm having an extra difficult time making decisions, I know that I need to like meditate or like do some grounding work and just like bring myself back to earth. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, and then number 3 is follow through on hard days. Whenever we're having a hard day, that is the most important time to really show up for ourselves, because it is on those hard days that we most likely need this habit or routine or whatever it is that we are working on implementing in our life, right? And next thing is to forgive the choices that taught you the most and learn from your mistakes. So this is also where self-compassion is going to come in, because we're only human. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to make the wrong decision, which that's also another thing I had to reframe, is that there really is no wrong decision, because each decision that we make is taking us down the path that we need to go down. Because there's, even if it feels like the wrong decision, we made that decision because we clearly needed to learn something from that situation. So every decision that we make, there is no right or wrong. It's only taking us down each path and teaching us something that we need to learn. And just giving yourself grace when you do make mistakes, and allowing yourself to learn from it and move forward. It's really not that deep. And identifying your values is also very important in building self-trust, because I feel like having self-trust is really just like getting to know yourself and having that confidence in who you are as a person, and knowing that you can handle anything that comes your way, that you will be able to figure things out. That is like one of the core beliefs that I've programmed myself to believe, is that I will figure it out. It's that if anything happens, I'll figure it out. It's that the belief is that I will always figure it out, no matter what. Knowing what values are really important to you, that was also like an exercise that I've done with myself. And these values can also change depending on the seasons of our lives. So like, one of your values could be travel. One could be your family, friends, relationships, or consistency, or faith. Like knowing what your values are really important, because that actually really does help in decision making. So if you're someone who also struggles with decision making, maybe like go back and look at what your values are. You can go to Google and figure out what values there are, and then make a list of your top 5 values. And every decision, if you're having a hard time deciding on something, refer back to your value now, and then make the decision that aligns with your values. And knowing your values are so important, because it also it's important because then it's like you can look at your life and what you're doing, your habits, and really be able to practice that self-awareness. Like, okay, are these habits I'm doing and these routines that I have in my life, are they serving me? Are they aligned with my values? So I think it's really important to identify your values to help build that self-trust. And lastly, I put showing up for yourself and honoring your needs. And that can look like saying no when you just simply do not have the energy to go out this Friday night with some friends, because you would rather stay home. And just saying no to events because you know that you don't need to be everywhere at once. And saying no to maybe a meeting or having to reschedule, and just like listening to your needs and honoring yourself. So those are some steps that you guys can begin to take to build your self-trust. But I feel like, to me, like the biggest things with self-trust in my head is keeping small promises to yourself over and over again, because then the more you do it, the more you can begin to trust yourself, that you are someone that you can trust and that other people can trust, because you're constantly showing up for yourself. And the second part that is really big to me when it comes to self-trust is honoring yourself and honoring your needs. Now that we've talked about the 3 pillars of self-trust that I really wanted to talk about, which was what self-trust is and signs that you could be lacking self-trust and ways to build it, I want to take us back to my journey. I want to circle back to when I was talking about my journey of when I was first beginning this work, right? Like I told you guys, I started by building my habit of doing photography 5 minutes a day. And in that season of life, once I started that, I was very much in the season of saying yes. I was in my yes man era. Anything that was coming my way, I was yes. Even if it scared the crap out of me, yes, I was gonna do it. Like, I was in my single girl era. I was living on my own for the very first time, and just in this like brand new season of my life, really becoming this new version of myself. And I was saying yes to everything that was coming my way. And one of the things that I said yes to was competing in my very first bodybuilding competition. I was just working out at the gym one day, and this guy comes up to me and asked if I had ever been interested or thought about competing. And, you know, as someone who was in the gym, like, I feel like anyone who's actively in the gym working out, like, it's something that we've all thought about. And, you know, I've like toyed with the idea, like, I thought it would be cool to like one day do it, but it was never something that I think I was gonna take action towards, really. But then when he came up to me and asked me, I was like, actually, yeah, like I have. And then he was like, well, I am a bikini coach and I'm actually looking to take on more competitors. Like, I would love to take you on. I think you have a great solid foundation and you look great. And I see you here working hard. So I said yes. I didn't know anything about this man, knew nothing about the sport. But I said yes because I was in my yes man era. And so I started my journey of my first ever prep. And for those of you that know anything about starting a prep and doing a bodybuilding show, it requires a lot of discipline, okay? And I was in this era of my life when I was learning to build self-trust. And this was exactly what I needed. So I truly believe that everything shows up in our life for a reason, and that when we are ready for a coach or a mentor or teacher in our life, that person will appear. And I feel like in that moment of my life, like my bikini coach, I was like ready, and the universe knew I was ready, and boom, there he was. And I learned a lot throughout that journey of competing for my very first bodybuilding show. And this stage of life, I really developed self-trust. I, started prepping for my first ever bodybuilding show. And through this journey of being on my first prep, I really started to build my confidence. Like, I feel like through that journey, my confidence just shot up, like through the roof. And I mean, it helps that at my second show. So I did my first show, and then a month later, we did a second show. My first show, I placed like second overall. And then my second show, I got first overall. I like swept the entire competition, you guys. No big deal. And I actually got my pro card within like Natural Bodybuilding League, which is pretty cool. Low-key a flex. But like, yeah, like I still remember that day. And it's just like, it's so crazy because it feels like another lifetime ago. But my whole life, I've never thought of myself as a winner, if that makes sense. But I just never thought of myself as someone who will win things, or yeah. And that moment really changed that for me. I was like, I am a winner. I am someone who wins. And doing that show, even though like after bodybuilding, I like felt like I developed some not so healthy eating habits and had to work through that, I have absolutely no regrets, and I'm so thankful for the experience. And during my first ever bodybuilding prep, I decided to also start 75 hard. And for those of you guys that don't know what 75 hard is, it is a challenge. It's a transformation challenge developed by Andy Frisella. He is the owner of the supplement company called First Form, which a lot of you guys are probably familiar with. It's a pretty big name brand within the supplement industry. And they're based out of St. Louis. Like, that's where the supplement company started. And Andy Frisella and I want to say someone else, but they have this podcast. I honestly can't even remember the name of it anymore, but I used to listen to the shit out of it. I used to listen to it all the time when I was in this era of really like building my discipline. I was very much in my masculine energy, you know, and I needed to be in that energy at that time in my life because that was something I was building and learning for myself. And I remember I would like go on my runs and like listen to Andy talk to me in my ear. He's like yelling at me. He was like, "Don't be weak, don't be soft, like keep pushing," and just like, you know, just be talking about all this stuff in the episode. And I'm just like, yeah. Like just really like needing that motivation for my run, you know? But yeah, so in this period of my life, you know, I started building my self-trust with photography and doing that every single day. And then I started my first bodybuilding prep and I started 75 hard because I was like, you know what? Like, why not do a 75 hard while I'm prepping for a bodybuilding show? Because I need a lot of discipline. The 75 hard is essentially teaching you discipline. Okay. And I realized I didn't even get into like the details of the 75 hard, but so Andy came up with 75 hard, and what it is you have to do it for 75 days, and you have to work out 2 times a day, and they both have to be at least 45 minutes, and one has to be outdoors. You have to drink a gallon of water every single day, read 10 pages, take a progress picture, follow a healthy diet plan that of your choosing, and I can't remember what else, but oh, no alcohol, duh. And so I said no alcohol, workout, water, read. I feel like that's it in the pictures, but there could be more. I can't remember. But anyway, so I decided to do that, and I was able to do it for like, I can't remember how many days, but I feel like I got through like the middle of it, and I broke it with one day. I like literally fell asleep in my bed with my book propped up, and I didn't get to 10 pages, y'all. And then of course I at the time was like, you know what? I missed a day, I failed, I am just gonna stop doing it. That was like my mentality at the time. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Like, I don't want to start over. Or if I did start over, I can't remember. But I know that I definitely like never completed, and I never got to the 75 days. But it was throughout that journey that I really like, with all of that being said, I really, in this period of my life, learned to build self-trust. And like I said, because of this journey of building my self-trust, like my confidence shot through the roof. I feel like if you're someone who's been following along my journey, like during my bodybuilding days, like you guys know how much like I've grown since then. And if you haven't, like, you can like take my words for it. I am not a confident girl, and it was through that experience that really changed a lot of things for me. So yeah, self-trust. If there's anything you guys can take away from this episode, is that self-trust is the key to building your confidence. If confidence is something that you are lacking, this episode is for you. And everything I talked about, I hope you guys can take something away and make one little change and make one little promise to yourself that you're going to keep for the next 30 days. And honestly, like I told you guys, I originally wasn't going to talk about self-trust after self-compassion, but now like I realize I feel like self-trust does make sense to talk about self-compassion, because as we're developing our self-trust, self-compassion is a very important skill to have while we are doing this work. Because when we buy into our negative voice, we diminish our self-trust. So by practicing self-compassion, we can relate to our inner critic by getting curious instead of feeling shameful about it. So ways that we can begin to relate to the inner critic by getting curious are, let me go back to my article on Psychology Today, but we can ask, what is the inner critic and where does it come from? What is its intention? And what does it want from us? What is its job? What is it teaching us? So instead of feeling shameful for having our negative voice, we can begin to get curious and ask questions and get to know our inner critic. That is pretty much everything that I have for today's episode. I feel like we've got a good understanding of what self-trust is and some actionable steps that you guys can begin to take to start building that self-trust and develop that clarity and confidence within ourselves so we can move through the world with a grounded confidence in who we are as individuals, knowing our values and making decisions that align with us. And before I leave you guys with this episode, something I did want to talk about is that in this current season of my life, I am learning to trust myself more creative when it comes to my creativity and like just trusting myself as the creative that I am. I feel like as a creative and a photographer, you know, it can be really hard. It can be really easy to compare ourselves to other people, but I've just gotta, right now I'm just learning to trust in that I do have an eye for this and I have a vision and that I'm going to execute on my vision and just like staying in my lane, keeping my eyes on my own work. And I also wanted to give you guys a little self-trust challenge that you guys can do if this is something you guys feel called to do. I would love for you guys to join me in my soft girl reset. So I'm talking about this because I actually shared this on my Instagram. I created my own version of the 75 hard. So I was feeling really called to have more discipline in my life right now. I feel like, especially since starting the podcast, like I've said, like the podcast feels like my purpose. It feels like my calling. And because I am stepping back into my purpose, it's really reignited the spark inside of me. And it's really making me want to show up as the best version of myself. And I felt like I was lacking some discipline in my life. I felt like, you know, because I can make my own schedule, right? Like I bartend maybe once or twice a week, but the rest of the time, I'm really just doing my own thing. I'm making my own schedules, working with my clients. And, you know, like being your own boss sounds nice until you realize that you really have to be accountable for your actions, for how hard you're working and meeting deadlines that you are setting for yourself. Like it sounds way nicer than it actually is, because then you realize, oh shit, like I actually like need to like be my own boss and like show up for myself in order for my business to grow and to move the needles forward. So I realized that that was something, you know, like, especially like me making this promise to myself to put out an episode every single week. That is a lot, okay? Because before this, when I was consistent with the podcast, I was doing bi-weekly episodes and even that felt hard. And then like towards the end of last season, I was kind of just putting them out whenever I could. Like there was no consistency. So coming back, I'm really wanting to be consistent in my podcasting and dropping episodes weekly. You know, like I knew that in order to do that, I really needed to be the best version of myself so I can continue to show up. So that's why one of my Chris's sister-in-law, she's doing the 75 hard, and I felt really inspired that she was doing that. And then I saw another girl on Instagram. Her name is Rachel, and she did like the Hydrox race. I don't know if that's how you say it. And I remember seeing that and just feeling so inspired by it. I was like, oh my gosh, like she's such a badass. Like that is so cool. And I had never in my life wanted to do a Hydrox race because I had another friend, Taylor, who had done it and like had asked me, because I was like, oh, so cool. And she was like, oh, you're welcome to join if you want. And I was like, nah, I'm good. But then after like seeing Rachel post about it, I like all of a sudden found myself wanting to like do a Hydrox race. I was like, you know what? It's been a while since I've like really pushed myself. Like I was like, should I like do a race? And I like started to look into it. And then I realized what it was. I was like, you know what, Cindy? It's not that you want to do the 75 hard, and it's not that you want to do the Hydrox race. because I realized at the core of what I was wanting was more discipline, because both of those things was discipline. And I wanted more of that. So I was like, you know what? How can I have more discipline in my life, but doing it in a way that feels aligned with my values and this season of my life? So that is how I came up with the Soft Girl Summer Reset, because, you know, summer's right around the corner and your girl's going to Bali at the end of July. So excited. So, you know, I just want to like feel good, look good, feel good, you know, like I've competed in the past. I know what my body can look like when I'm really lean, right? And I'm not trying to be lean like that, but I just want to be at my best. I just want to be my best self, okay? So I decided to come up with my own 75 hard in a way that feels sustainable and really like it's nothing crazy. So I'll put it in the show notes, like my version of it, if you guys haven't seen the Instagram post, if you're new to the podcast, so you guys can go check it out if you're also interested. But I would honestly recommend you guys to create your own version of your Soft Girl Summer Reset, because the one I created is solely for me and my needs. So I want you guys to like, you can use mine as a template, but create your own version that feels sustainable for you. So mine is, you know, drink 2 liters of water every day, which is literally just this one water bottle that I have. Like, I just want to at least get through that every single day. And I want to work out 4 times a week. And one of them can be like a fun class, because I've been really into taking like the dance classes that I've been doing with my girlfriends and like the pole dance classes. So one of them can be that, because that is movement. And you know, I went with 4 days, like, which is nothing crazy, you know, and then just following a healthy diet. And for me right now, that is cutting out sweets, because I have a very bad sweet tooth. Okay, that is my downfall. I have a bad sweet tooth and I'm a snacker. So I'm really challenging myself, and I haven't like done this since I was on prep, to cut out sweets. So like no dessert, no ice cream. But you know what? Like I can do it, because it doesn't mean that I'm not ever gonna have them again. But I just realized that like I'm someone who struggles with, like, I've struggled with IBS, like I've had gut problems. I still like feel like I have a leaky gut syndrome, you know? I can get bloated. I do not have good poops. Sorry if that's TMI, but just really working on healing that, especially like after my bodybuilding journey. I was dealing with a lot of gut issues after that, because when I was doing my prep, I started eating all these like stuff that was like 0 calorie, low calorie. But what we don't realize is how bad those food are, because they're so processed and they're full of fake shit in there that is actually in turn worse for our body in the long run. But at the time, I was like, ooh, this is such a great way for me to like eat extra food or eat something sweet without like having it added to my macro, right? But anyway, so I'm really like just on a journey of healing my gut, and really just for my diet plan, I'm really just focusing on eating more whole foods, and really I'm just not doing no sweets, no refined sugar, and no fried food, because like those are just not good for our gut. So I'm really just avoiding anything that's like bad for my gut. And I'm trying to limit my gluten and dairy, but I'm not like saying no to them. Like I am still having Greek yogurt. I'm still like having gluten here and there. Like, but I'm just like, if I can limit it, I will. But if it's not bothering me, I'm not going to. So it's really not that strict. But what I'm most strict about is the sweets part. And then I'm also trying to limit my screen time as well. And I'm using the app Opal. So like block out my social media apps for like certain times of the day, which is nice, because that's just something I felt like I needed to work on, was that sometimes like late at night I can just be scrolling, and then especially during work hours when I'm at home working, like it can be so easy to get on social media, get distracted with one thing, and then oh my god, like 20 minutes has passed by. when I could have been working on something, right? And then reading 10 pages a day, going on a nature walk every single day. So just like taking my dog on a walk every day, being outside in nature. And I feel like right now it's such a good time. The weather is perfect. And no alcohol, which that was also something that I was like kind of going back and forth on, because I'm a bartender. I work in a bar. And listen, every once in a while, we take shots when we're on the clock. And a lot of times, like when I'm working, like customers will ask to take shots with me, and I always say yes, because I just feel like it like builds that rapport with the guest, and they think like, they're like, oh, she's hella cool, and then you become their bartender. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, it's fun. So that's like another one that I was like, oh, damn, it's like, because it's kind of sad that I'm not going to be able to, but at the same time, I can have fun without alcohol too. So I believe that's everything that I'm doing. But yeah, I'll link that post below so you guys can look at it, because I might have missed something. I don't know. But yeah, I will highly encourage you guys to create your own and start your own little reset with me. And this can be a way for you to build that self-trust. So this is our self-trust challenge. And like, I want you guys to create your own, because I feel like my biggest thing, like with the podcast and everything I do, is that I don't ever, like, I want you guys to take control of your own life. I want you guys to feel like you can do these things on your own. Like, you know, like I'm teaching you guys the way for you to be able to like learn and then like do these things on your own. Like, I don't ever want you to feel like you need me to be able to do these things, because you guys have the power to make the changes. It is completely up to you guys to make the changes. You are in control of your life. I'm only here to plant some seeds, and like hopefully one of these seeds will like start to like make sense for you guys. So yeah, that is pretty much everything for today's episode. I hope that I didn't get too like off the topic on certain things, but I had a lot of fun chatting with you guys today. My stomach is growling, which means it is lunchtime. And before I end the episode, I do want to thank you guys for being here and making it all the way to the end. You guys are the real one. And remember to mark your calendars for June 6th, because we are having the second in-person self-love event. And I had my very first event for the podcast last year in September. It was called the Self-Love Party. But this one is going to be a completely different vibe. And I'm really excited to share more details with you guys this next week, because this next week's episode, we are going to be having a very special guest on the podcast. She's probably someone you guys would never expect, because she's not someone that's like in my circle. And I feel like the people that I've had on the podcast are just like people that I'm like friends with, people, you know, people that like I'm kind of like in my community. But this person, you guys might not know who she is, but I'm about to introduce you guys to her. I'm about to put you guys on, because she is freaking dope. And I just like, I remember the first time I met her, she just really impacted me to where I was like, I need to find a way to work with this woman. Like, I need more of her in my life. So I'm excited for you guys to experience her this next episode. I'm excited to get to know her better, because I've purposely like only asked her like very minimal questions to get to know her a little bit, because I wanted to really save it for the podcast, and I want it all to just feel very organic. So I'm excited for you this next week. So make sure you guys tune back in this next week, because we have a very special guest on the podcast, and I will be revealing more of this event on June 6th. So many exciting things coming, guys. I can't even talk right. So make sure you guys are following along the podcast, that you are subscribed wherever you guys are listening to. Please make sure that you're subscribed, guys, and that you're following me on the Instagram, the Self-Love Model. And if you haven't already, make sure that you guys rate this podcast. If you guys are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give us a rating, because it'll really help boost the podcast and expand its community to other like-minded individuals. and we can all continue to grow together. Anyway, thank you all for being here. And remember, you guys are so loved and you are more than enough. Love you guys.